I always thought sisters were supposed to have each other's backs. That's what Mom used to tell us before she passed. Anyway, but watching Angela charm her way through Grandma's funeral, I realized some backs are meant to be stabbed. My name is Kira, and this is the story of how my sister destroyed my life, and how I rebuilt it from the ashes she left behind. She would have wanted you to have this, Angela said, dangling Grandma's vintage pearl necklace in front of our relatives. The same necklace Grandma had promised me on my 16th birthday. Kira's always been more practical. She'd prefer the money, wouldn't you, little sister? I stood there, frozen, as she played her part perfectly. The caring older sister, so thoughtful, so considerate. I wanted to scream that she was lying, that Grandma had specifically promised me that necklace, but the words wouldn't come. That's so generous of you, Angela, our Aunt Carol cooed, while Dad nodded approvingly. They were all under her spell, just like always. The reading of the will a week later was when everything truly fell apart. Grandma had left her estate to be split equally between Angela and me, a substantial inheritance that would have set us both up for life, along with her collection of family heirlooms. I just don't think Kira's in the right headspace to handle this responsibility, Angela announced during the family meeting. She's been so unstable since Mom died. Remember that time she quit her job without notice? I had quit because Angela had sabotaged my relationship with my boss. But nobody knew that part. I started to protest. But Angela cut me off with a concerned look. See how defensive she gets? I'm worried about her. She turned to Dad, her eyes welling up with perfectly timed tears. Maybe I should manage both portions until she's more stable, for her own good? Dad squeezed her hand. That might be best, sweetheart. Kira, your sister only wants to help. I watched in horror as my family nodded in agreement. Even Turner, my boyfriend at the time, looked convinced. Angela's right, babe. You have been a bit emotional lately. The next few weeks were a blur of paperwork and legal documents I was pressured to sign. Angela insisted it was all temporary, just until I got back on my feet. I signed them because fighting meant losing my family entirely. I signed them because I still wanted to believe my sister loved me. Then came the Instagram post that changed everything. Starting my new life in Paris. Sometimes you have to chase your dreams. Titi, blessed say your new beginnings. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. There she was, champagne glass in hand, standing in front of the Eiffel Tower. She'd emptied the accounts, taken everything. The money, the heirlooms, even Grandma's pearls, all gone. When I called Dad in a panic, his response cut deeper than Angela's theft. She says you agreed to this, Kira, that you wanted her to invest the money for both of you. She's always been better with finances. Dad, she's stolen everything. How can you not see what she's doing? His sigh was heavy with disappointment. I think you need help, sweetheart. This paranoia isn't healthy. I hung up and collapsed onto my kitchen floor, the cold tiles pressing against my forehead as I tried to breathe. My phone buzzed with a text from Turner. I think we need a break. Your family drama is too much right now. Later that night, as I sat in my apartment surrounded by unpaid bills I could have easily handled with my inheritance, my phone lit up with another Instagram notification. Angela, dining at some fancy restaurant, wearing Grandma's pearls. The caption read, "Family is everything, missing my baby sister. Saksh, blessed fa fresh, family first." I threw my phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. In that moment, something inside me shattered too. My naivety, maybe, or the last traces of the little sister who used to worship her big sister Angela. As I swept up the broken pieces of my phone, I made a promise to myself. This wouldn't break me. Angela had taken everything else, but she couldn't take my determination to survive, to thrive. I just didn't know then how sweet that survival would taste when karma finally came knocking on my door, wearing designer heels and carrying a Louis Vuitton suitcase full of desperation. But we'll get to that part later. First, I had to learn how to stand on my own 2 feet in a world where the person who was supposed to lift me up had instead chosen to bury me alive. You're seriously living off ramen noodles. Giselle stood in my tiny studio apartment, hands on her hips, surveying the stack of instant noodle packages on my counter. Girl, this has got to stop. I was hunched over my laptop, scrolling through job listings. It's not that bad. They're actually pretty good with an egg mixed in. Nope. Get dressed. We're going to dinner. And I'm not taking no for an answer. That was Giselle, my best friend since college, and the only person who stuck around after Angela's grand theft. While everyone else bought into my sister's poor, unstable Kira narrative, Giselle saw through the act. Over plates of pad thai at our favorite hole-in-the-wall restaurant, she laid out her plan. My company's hiring for an entry-level marketing position. The pay's decent, and there's room for growth. Marketing. I pushed my food around the plate. Angela always said I'd be terrible at that. Too shy, too awkward. Angela's full of shit. Giselle cut in sharply. Remember that fundraiser you organized in college? You killed it. Stop letting her voice live in your head rent-free. She was right. Angela had always had opinions about my career choices, steering me away from anything she considered her territory. Marketing had been one of them. The next morning, I put on my only professional outfit, a black blazer and pencil skirt I'd bought for Grandma's funeral, and walked into the interview. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. 2 weeks later, I started my new job. Welcome to Horizon Marketing, Fatima, my supervisor, said warmly. Let's get you settled in. The work was challenging, but I threw myself into it. Every time I felt like giving up, I'd picture Angela's smug face on Instagram, still posting about her fabulous European adventure with my money. It fueled me. 3 months in, I landed my first client. 6 months in, I got a raise. The ramen noodles were replaced with real groceries, and I started putting away a small amount of savings each month. Look at you, marketing queen, Giselle cheered one night over wine. Remember when you couldn't even afford happy hour? I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen made my stomach drop. Turner. Ignore it, Giselle advised, reaching for my phone. But I'd already answered. Hello. Kira. His voice was hesitant. I saw you on LinkedIn. Congratulations on the promotion. Thanks. My voice was ice. Was that all? No, I've been thinking about everything that happened. I should have believed you about Angela. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Funny how everyone's starting to say that now. Can we meet? Just to talk? I feel terrible about how things ended. Giselle was making frantic hang-up gestures across the table. I'm seeing someone, I lied smoothly. And I'm doing great, Turner. Really great. Without you, without Angela, without anyone who chose not to believe me. After I hung up, Giselle raised her glass. Now that's the Kira I've been waiting to see. But later that night, alone in my apartment, a new one, small, but Angela-free, I allowed myself to cry. Not because I missed Turner, but because I was finally starting to recognize my own strength. My phone pinged with a notification. Another Instagram post from Angela, but something was different. The smile seemed forced. The designer outfit had been posted before, and the location tag was mysteriously absent. Living my best life, Faktusak blessed luxury lifestyle. I zoomed in on her face. The makeup was heavy, but couldn't quite hide the dark circles under her eyes. Well, I murmured, screenshotting the post. Looks like someone's perfect life might not be so perfect after all. My doorbell rang, startling me. It was nearly midnight, too late for visitors. Through the peephole, I saw Giselle, holding a folder. You need to see this, she said, as I opened the door. Remember my cousin, who works at that fancy hotel in Paris? She just sent me some interesting information about our dear Angela. I took the folder, my heart racing. Maybe karma wasn't just a nice idea after all. Maybe it was about to become my favorite word. But first, I needed to decide. Did I want to watch my sister's carefully constructed house of cards collapse on its own? Or did I want to be the one to blow it down? Looking at the folder in my hands, I smiled. For the first time since Angela left, it felt like I had choices. And this time, I wouldn't be the one getting burned. The photos in Giselle's folder told a story Angela's Instagram followers would never see. My sister arguing with hotel staff, Angela being escorted out of luxury boutiques, a series of bounce checks from increasingly cheaper hotels. She's burning through the money faster than a California wildfire, Giselle said, pointing to the dates. And that's not all. Look at this. The last photo showed Angela leaving a pawn shop, clutching a familiar velvet box, Grandma's pearls. Before I could process this, my phone rang. Dad's name flashed on the screen. Kira, his voice sounded older, tired. Do you have a minute? Depends. Are you calling to defend Angela again? No, he cleared his throat. I owe you an apology, a big one. I sat down hard on my couch, Giselle squeezing my free hand in support. I got a call from the bank, Dad continued, about some irregularities with Angela's power of attorney documents. They're saying some signatures might have been forged. You don't say, I replied dryly. I should have listened to you. I should have. His voice cracked. Can I come see you, please? 20 minutes later, he was at my door, looking smaller than I remembered. His eyes took in my new apartment, lingering on the wall of achievement certificates from work. Marketing, he said, reading one of them. But Angela always said. Angela says a lot of things, Dad. Most of them aren't true. He sank into my armchair, head in his hands. I've been such a fool. Your Aunt Carol called yesterday. She ran into Angela's old roommate from Paris. Apparently, Angela was asked to leave their apartment months ago. Something about stolen jewelry and unpaid rent. And let me guess, now nobody can reach her? He nodded miserably. Her phone's disconnected. Her last Instagram post was 2 weeks ago. I keep thinking about what you tried to tell me. Stop, I cut him off. I don't need your guilt right now. What I needed was your support back then. I know. He pulled out an envelope. I've been saving. It's not much, but it's a start toward what you should have inherited. I stared at the envelope. 6 months ago, I would have grabbed it desperately. Now, keep it, I said. I'm doing fine on my own. His eyes welled up. You are, aren't you, despite everything I did? Giselle, who'd been quietly observing, spoke up. Mr. Sutton, Kira has a meeting early tomorrow. Maybe we should wrap this up. Dad stood, understanding the dismissal. At the door, he turned back. If you hear from her, will you let me know she's okay? Sure, Dad. I managed a small smile. But I'm not the sister you need to worry about anymore. After he left, Giselle poured us both a glass of wine. You okay? Better than okay. I pulled out my laptop. Help me track down Angela's old roommate. I want to hear exactly what happened in Paris. 3 days and several international phone calls later, we had our answer. Angela's European dream had crumbled months ago. The inheritance money was gone, spent on luxury hotels, designer clothes, and what her roommate described as a gambling problem that got way out of hand. She borrowed money from some scary people, the roommate told me. Then one night, she just disappeared, left all her stuff behind. I was about to close my laptop when an email notification popped up. The subject line made my blood freeze. Little sister, I need your help. Don't open it, Giselle warned, but I already had. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm in trouble. Real trouble. You're the only one I can trust. Please don't tell Dad, but I'm back in a town. Can we meet? I'll explain everything. Delete it, Giselle said firmly. After everything she did. Wait. I stared at the screen. A plan forming. Maybe this is exactly what we've been waiting for. Kira, no, whatever you're thinking. She took everything from me, Giselle. My inheritance, my family's trust, my dignity. I started typing a reply. Now she wants my help? Fine. But this time, we're playing by my rules. I hit send on my response. Coffee shop on 5th Street. Tomorrow at 2. Don't be late. Giselle groaned. I know that look. What are you planning? I closed my laptop with a smile. Let's just say Karma's about to get a little help from her friends. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop early, wearing my sharpest business suit and Angela's favorite shade of red lipstick. Time to show my big sister exactly who the unstable one was now. The woman who walked into the coffee shop was barely recognizable as my sister. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. Angela wore wrinkled jeans and a faded sweater, her once immaculate blonde hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, poorly concealed by drugstore makeup. "Kira," she breathed, sliding into the seat across from me. "You look amazing." "I know." I pushed a coffee toward her. "Black, 2 sugars, unless your taste has changed along with your circumstances." Her hands shook slightly as she reached for the cup. "You always remembered how I take my coffee. Funny how I can remember things about you, but you couldn't remember basic human decency." She flinched. "I deserve that." "You deserve a lot more than that." I leaned back, crossing my legs. "But I'm curious, what kind of trouble are you in that's bad enough to bring you crawling back to your unstable little sister?" Angela glanced around nervously before leaning in. "I made some mistakes in Paris. Borrowed money from the wrong people. They followed me back here." "How much?" 50,000 euros. She stared into her coffee. "They're giving me 2 weeks to pay it back, or..." She swallowed hard. "Let's just say they were very graphic about the consequences." "And the inheritance money?" "Gone." A tear slipped down her cheek. "All of it. The gambling, the shopping. I thought I could win it back. I even sold Grandma's pearls." I took a slow sip of my latte. "And now you want my help? I know I don't deserve it." She reached across the table, but I pulled my hand away. "But you're my sister, my only family who might still help me." "That's rich, considering how you treated your only family when you had the upper hand." "I was wrong," she whispered. "So wrong, about everything. You were always the strong one, the smart one. I was just jealous." "Jealous?" I laughed sharply. "You stole my inheritance, turned our family against me, and destroyed my relationship. All because you were jealous. You had everything I wanted." Her voice cracked. "Dad's respect, Grandma's love, real friends like Giselle. I just had appearances." A waitress approached to refill our coffees. I waited until she left before responding. "And now you have nothing." Angela nodded miserably. "I'm staying at a motel off Highway 9. I can barely afford that. These men, they know where I am. They've been watching me." "Sounds scary," I said coolly. "Almost as scary as having your entire support system ripped away by someone you trusted." "Please," she whispered. "I know I can't fix what I did, but I need help. I need my sister." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "You're right about one thing. You can't fix what you did. But lucky for you, I'm not like you. I'll help." Hope bloomed in her eyes. "Really? You can stay with me?" "Oh, Kira, thank you." "I'm not finished." I cut her off. "You'll stay with me, but on my terms. You'll get a job. Any job, even if it's cleaning toilets. Every penny you earn goes toward your debt. You'll sign a legal document giving up any remaining claim to Grandma's estate. And you'll tell Dad and the family the complete truth about everything." She paled. "But they'll hate me." "Welcome to my world." I grabbed my purse. "Those are my terms. Take them, or go back to your motel and wait for your friends to find you." Angela wiped her eyes, smearing her mascara. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, I'll do it." "Good, get your things and come to this address by 6. I handed her a slip of paper. "Don't be late, and don't make me regret this." As I walked toward the door, she called out, "Why are you helping me, after everything I did?" I turned back, meeting her desperate gaze, "Because watching you build yourself back up from nothing, on my terms, is going to be so much more satisfying than watching you destroy yourself." Outside, Giselle was waiting in her car. "How'd it go?" She took the bait. I buckled my seatbelt. "Call your lawyer friend. We need those documents ready by 6. Are you sure about this?" I smiled, thinking of Angela's fallen face when I laid out my terms. "Oh, I'm sure. The prodigal sister's about to learn what real karma feels like." But as we drove away, I couldn't shake the image of her trembling hands on that coffee cup. Was I really helping her, or was I just becoming a different version of her? I pushed the thought away. She made her choices. Now it was time for her to face the consequences. Under my roof, under my rules. At exactly 5:59 p.m., Angela knocked on my door, carrying a single battered suitcase and a designer handbag that had seen better days. "Your palace awaits," I said, gesturing to the small guest room. Really just an office with a fold-out couch. Bathrooms down the hall. We share. Her eyes darted around my apartment, taking in the modest furnishings. "It's nice. Amazing what honest work can buy, isn't it?" I handed her a stack of papers. "Sign these." She flipped through them slowly. A formal confession about the inheritance fraud. "Kira, if I sign this, you could go to jail?" "Yeah, that's the point. Consider it insurance against any future schemes." I tapped the papers. "Sign, or there's the door." Her hand trembled as she signed each page. "One more thing." I pulled out a basic flip phone. "Your new phone. No social media, no fancy apps, just calls and texts. But my Instagram is dead, just like your old life." I crossed my arms. "Tomorrow you start your new job." "You found me a job already. Giselle's cousin manages a cleaning service. You start at 7 a.m. The horror on her face was almost comical. "Cleaning? But I've never done an honest day's work in your life?" "I know. Time to learn." That night, I heard her crying through the thin walls. Part of me wanted to comfort her. We'd shared a room as kids, and her tears had always been my weakness. But that was before she'd betrayed me, before she'd stolen everything. The next morning, I found her struggling with the coffee maker. "Here," I said, reaching past her to press the right buttons. "Like this." "Thanks." She hesitated. "Kira, about those men. They're really dangerous. What if they find me here?" "Already handled." I poured coffee into a travel mug. "Giselle's brother's a cop. He's aware of the situation." "You thought of everything, didn't you?" "Unlike you, I plan ahead." I handed her the mug. "Your uniform's on the couch. Don't be late." She came home that night, looking shell-shocked, her uniform stained with cleaning products. "Rough day?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "I cleaned 11 bathrooms." She collapsed onto the couch. "My hands are raw." Builds character. The woman in 4B yelled at me because I didn't fold her toilet paper into a triangle. She laughed suddenly, a hollow sound. God, I used to be that woman. Used to be, being the operative phrase. The next few days fell into a routine. Angela would leave early, come home late, and deposit her paycheck directly into an account I'd set up for her debt. She didn't complain much. Then came Sunday dinner with Dad. "You look different," he said when Angela opened the door. "No designer clothes or fake smile," she replied quietly. "This is what rock bottom looks like, Dad." Over pasta that Angela had helped cook, another new skill she was learning. She told him everything. The forged documents, the gambling, the stolen jewelry. "I'm so ashamed," she finished, tears streaming down her face. "Of all of it. But mostly of how I treated Kira." Dad sat in stunned silence for a long moment. "I don't even know who you are anymore." "Neither do I," she whispered. "But I'm trying to find out." After he left, Angela turned to me. "Are you enjoying this, watching me humiliate myself?" "Honestly, less than I thought I would." I started clearing the dishes. "Help me with these." As we washed dishes side by side, she spoke softly. "Remember when we used to do this at Grandma's? You'd wash, I'd dry, and we'd make up stories about our future lives." "Yeah, funny how none of those stories involved you stealing my inheritance and running off to Paris." She flinched. "I deserve that." "You deserve a lot worse." I handed her a plate to dry. "But maybe you also deserve a chance to prove you can change." "Why are you really helping me, Kira? The truth this time." I thought about it as I scrubbed a particularly stubborn pot, because watching you struggle through honest work, face your mistakes, actually earn your way back, That's better than any revenge I could have planned. And the men I owe money to? We'll figure it out. But we do it my way, no shortcuts, no schemes. She nodded, carefully drying a wine glass. Thank you for not being like me. Don't thank me yet, I warned. Tomorrow you're cleaning the gym locker rooms. Her horrified expression made me smile. Maybe this wasn't the sister relationship I'd dreamed of as a kid, but it was something real, built on hard truths instead of easy lies. And watching Angela learn those truths, one bathroom at a time, that was its own kind of justice. Your sister's actually doing pretty well, Giselle's cousin, Maria, reported over lunch. Shows up on time, doesn't complain, clients like her. I nearly choked on my sandwich. Are we talking about the same Angela? 3 weeks in, and she's already got regulars requesting her. Something about her attention to detail. Of course, Angela's perfectionism was finally being put to good use. The same obsessive nature that had made her an expert at manipulation was now being channeled into spotless bathrooms and perfectly organized closets. When I got home that evening, I found Angela scrubbing our kitchen floor on her hands and knees. You know we have a mop, right? Can't get the corners properly with a mop. She sat back on her heels, wiping sweat from her forehead. Besides, I'm saving up my energy. Tomorrow's my first corporate office cleaning. The law firm? She nodded. Maria says it's a big opportunity. If they like my work, it could mean steady clients, better pay. Well, look who's becoming a responsible adult. Don't sound so surprised. She stood up, wincing. By the way, I calculated the numbers. At this rate, I can pay back about 30% of my debt in 6 months. And the other 70%. Her face fell. I'm working on it. Maybe if I pick up some weekend shifts. A sharp knock at the door cut her off. Through the peephole, I saw 2 men in expensive suits. Angela, one called out. We know you're in there. Time to talk about our money. The color drained from Angela's face. Oh God, they found me. Bathroom, I whispered, pushing her toward the hall. Lock the door. Don't come out until I call you. Once she was hidden, I opened the door, keeping the security chain on. Can I help you? The taller man smiled without warmth. We're looking for Angela, business matter. Haven't seen her in months. Not since Paris, actually. Have you tried her Instagram? Cute, the shorter one growled. Listen, we know she's staying here. Tell her she's got 3 days to pay up, or things get ugly. Is that a threat? Just business. The tall one slipped a card through the gap. Make sure she gets the message. After they left, I found Angela huddled in the bathtub, shaking. They're going to kill me, she whispered. No, they're not. I pulled out my phone. Because we're calling the police. They'll just deny everything. It's my word against theirs, and I have no proof. Actually, I smiled grimly. You do. Remember that confession you signed? The one detailing all your illegal activities in Paris, including who you borrowed money from. Her eyes widened. You knew they'd come here eventually. I told you, I plan ahead. I dialed Giselle's brother's number. Time to let the professionals handle this. 2 hours later, we sat in a police station, giving statements. Turns out, our visitors were already known to Interpol for running illegal gambling operations across Europe. We've been building a case against them, the detective explained. Your sister's statement could be very helpful. Angela looked at me. Did you plan this too? Set me up to help take them down? No, but I'm not complaining about the outcome. I handed her a tissue. Consider it your first step toward actual redemption. Later that night, as we shared a pizza on my living room floor, Angela said quietly, I found an evening job, reception at a gym. Between that and the cleaning, maybe I can pay them back faster. The police said not to worry about the debt. It was illegal anyway. Not them. She met my eyes. You, Dad, everyone I hurt. I want to make it right. Before I could respond, someone knocked on the door again. This time, when I checked the peephole, I saw a familiar face that made my stomach drop. It's Turner, I told Angela. What's he doing here? She suddenly looked guilty. I might have run into him at the gym. He might have mentioned wanting to apologize again. You didn't. He really seems sorry, Kira, and he's been helping me with job leads. And, stop, I held up my hand. Just stop. You don't get to play matchmaker, not after everything. I'm not. She sighed. I'm trying to fix things, all the things I broke. Another knock. Kira, I know you're home. Please, can we talk? I looked at Angela, then at the door, feeling the weight of choices. Trust was like a broken mirror. You could piece it back together, but you'd always see the cracks. Was I ready to risk cutting myself again? 2 minutes, I called through the door. That's all you get. As I reached for the handle, I caught Angela's reflection in the window, a small, hopeful smile playing on her lips. Maybe some things really could be fixed. Maybe some cracks were worth the risk. But first, I had a very uncomfortable conversation waiting on the other side of that door. Turner stood in my doorway, looking exactly like he had the day he'd walked away, unfairly handsome and irritatingly nervous. You cut your hair, he said. You're down to 1 minute and 50 seconds. He ran a hand through his own hair. Right. Look, I've been doing a lot of thinking. That must have been painful. I deserve that. He shifted uncomfortably. I should have believed you about Angela, about everything. Yes, you should have. I crossed my arms. Is that all? No, actually. He pulled out his phone. Remember Julia from the Paris office? She sent me something interesting. My heart skipped. Julia, the colleague who'd helped Angela set up her European bank accounts. Show her, Angela called from behind me. I turned to glare at her. You knew about this. Just watch, she said quietly. Turner played a video. It showed Angela in a Paris casino, clearly drunk, bragging loudly about how she'd tricked her family. Stupid little sister, video Angela slurred. Actually signed everything over. They all bought it. Daddy, the lawyers, even that idiot boyfriend of hers. I watched as past Angela waved around what looked like forged documents, laughing about how easy it had been. Julia recorded this the night before Angela disappeared from Paris, Turner explained. She sent it to me last week, after hearing Angela was back in town. Why now? I demanded. Why didn't you show anyone this before? Because I was a coward. He put his phone away. Because it was easier to believe Angela's lies than admit I'd been played too. But mostly because I was afraid of losing my job. Julia and I were supposed to verify all Angela's paperwork. We failed, completely. Angela stepped forward. Tell her the rest. Turner nodded. I've submitted the video to the police and the family lawyer. With this evidence, they can reverse everything. Get your inheritance back. I felt dizzy. What? The money's gone, Angela added quickly. But the legal rights, the property, Grandma's heirlooms, everything I haven't sold can be returned to you. You knew about this? I turned to Angela. For how long? A week. She looked down. Turner showed me the video at the gym. I asked him to wait. I wanted to prove I was really changing first. By cleaning toilets? By being honest, by earning trust back. She met my eyes. I didn't want you to think I was just trying to escape consequences again. I sank onto the couch, processing. So all this time, while you've been scrubbing floors, I knew there was proof of what I did. Yes, Angela sat beside me, and I knew it would come out eventually. But I needed to show you, show everyone, that I could be better, that I am better. The video doesn't change anything, Turner added, but maybe it helps set things right. I looked between them, my ex-boyfriend, who'd failed me, my sister, who'd betrayed me, both standing there offering pieces of redemption I wasn't sure I wanted anymore. Get out, I said to Turner. Kira, the videos with the police, that's good, thank you, now get out. After he left, Angela touched my arm. Are you okay? No. I stood up, pacing. Do you know what the worst part is? I was actually starting to believe you'd changed, that this was real. It is real. She grabbed my hands. The video, the inheritance, that's just legal stuff. This? She gestured around the apartment. Me, learning to be a real sister, a better person. That's real. How can I believe that? How can I believe anything? Because I'm still here. Her voice cracked. Because I could have run when those men showed up. Could have run when Turner showed me the video. But I stayed. I'm staying. Why? Because you're my sister. Because I love you. Because I finally understand what that means. I pulled my hands away. I need some air. Want company? No. I grabbed my keys. I need to think. Alone. Outside, the night air was cool on my face. My phone buzzed. Giselle, probably checking in. Another text from Turner. I ignored both. Instead, I opened my photos, scrolling back to an old picture of Angela and me as kids, matching gap-toothed grins at Grandma's house. We'd been happy then, real. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Angela. Whatever you decide, I meant what I said. I'm not running anymore. Take all the time you need. I'll be here, probably cleaning something. Despite everything, I smiled. Maybe that was the difference. The old Angela would have chased me, manipulated me, forced a resolution on her terms. This Angela was letting me choose. And somehow, that meant more than any video confession or legal redemption ever could. I turned back toward home, toward my sister, toward whatever came next. We had a lot to figure out, but at least now we were doing it honestly. You missed a spot, I said, pointing to a dusty corner of the display case. Angela rolled her eyes, but dutifully wiped it clean. You know, when I agreed to help you open this boutique, I didn't realize you'd be such a demanding boss. Karma's funny that way. I adjusted a vintage necklace in the window display. Besides, you're not just helping, you're part owner. The bell above the door chimed as Giselle walked in, carrying coffee. The sign looks amazing. Sisters Vintage and Estate Jewelry. Very classy. Unlike that time Angela tried to pawn Grandma's pearls, I teased. Never letting that go, are you? Angela accepted a coffee from Giselle. Nope. But at least we got them back. I touched the pearls at my neck. Our first successful recovery from Angela's European adventure. The boutique had been my idea. After the legal dust settled and the inheritance was rightfully restored, I realized something. I didn't want to just take back what was mine. I wanted to build something new, something that could heal old wounds while creating something beautiful. The bell chimed again. Dad walked in, carrying a familiar wooden box. Found this in the attic, he said, setting it down carefully. Your grandmother's jewelry box. Thought it belonged here. Angela's hands trembled as she opened it. I remember this. She used to let us try everything on, tell us stories about each piece. Now we can do the same for others, I said. Help people create their own stories. Speaking of stories, Giselle interrupted. Your ex is outside looking pathetic again. I glanced out the window. Turner stood across the street, pretending to check his phone. He's been coming by every day this week, Angela said softly. Maybe. Don't. I turned away from the window. Some stories don't need sequels. Fair enough. She pulled out a small velvet pouch. Which reminds me, I have something for you. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet. One I recognized instantly. Mom's charm bracelet, I whispered. But you lost this years ago. I didn't lose it. I sold it. She looked down. In Paris, when things got bad. But I tracked it down. Took most of my savings. But, she shrugged. Some things are worth more than money. I fastened the bracelet around my wrist, the familiar charms tinkling. Thank you. Don't thank me. I'm just returning what was always yours. Dad cleared his throat. Girls, there's something else. He pulled out an envelope. Your grandmother left this with her lawyer. Instructions were to open it if you ever worked together. The letter inside was written in Grandma's elegant hand. My dearest girls, if you're reading this, you've finally learned what I always knew. You're stronger together than apart. The jewelry is just metal and stones. The real inheritance is the bond between you. Take care of it. It's worth more than all the pearls in the world. Love, Grandma. She knew, Angela said quietly. She knew we'd either destroy each other or find our way back. She bet on us finding our way back, I smiled. even when we couldn't see it ourselves. The bell chimed again. Our first real customer walked in, admiring the displays. "Welcome to Sisters," Angela and I said in unison, then laughed at our synchronization. As Angela showed the customer our collection, I watched her interact, genuine, professional, proud of her knowledge. No manipulation, no shortcuts, just honest work and earned confidence. Dad squeezed my shoulder. "Your grandmother would be proud of both of you." "Even after everything?" "Especially after everything." He nodded toward Angela. "Sometimes the longest road leads exactly where you needed to go." I touched Mom's bracelet, felt Grandma's pearls at my throat, and watched my sister, my real sister, not the facade she'd hidden behind for so long, build something honest and new. The customer left with a vintage ring and a smile. Angela turned to me, beaming. "First sale." "First of many," I corrected. "Ready to build this legacy the right way." Together. She held out her hand. I took it, squeezing firmly. Together. Outside, life moved on. Turner finally walked away. Somewhere in Paris, some angry men were facing justice. And here, in this small boutique, filled with history and hope, two sisters who'd lost their way had finally found their path back to each other. Not through grand gestures or dramatic moments, but through small acts of trust, through honest work and earned forgiveness, through choosing every day to be better than we were yesterday. "Hey," Angela called from the back room. "Help me with these boxes." I smiled. "Coming, sis." Some revenge stories end in destruction, but sometimes, if you're lucky, they end in reconstruction instead. And that's a much better story to tell.
I am Melia Errington. I stood gazing out the window of my Chicago apartment, my reflection in the skyline appearing almost ghost-like. At 38, I feel as though I've already lived several lifetimes. The setting sun painted the sky in oranges and purples, reminding me of countless nights spent climbing the corporate ladder. "Mommy, look!" Tammy's excited voice pulled me back to reality. I turned to find my 3-year-old twins, Tammy and Hadar, playing with building blocks on the living room floor. I smiled, though it wasn't entirely genuine. How quickly life can change. Just a few years ago, I had earned my MBA from Northwestern University and was a rising star at a top Chicago advertising agency. At 30, I became the youngest vice president of marketing in the company's history. "You're going places," I remember my boss saying after a particularly successful campaign. Now, those words echo in my head with an ironic ring. At 32, I married Bert, a colleague from the creative department. We were everyone's dream couple. Work hard, play hard, that was our motto. Our weekends were filled with networking events, art gallery openings, and planning for the future. Then at 35 came the unexpected news: I was pregnant with twins. The doctors called it a high-risk pregnancy and ordered complete bed rest. At first, I resisted, trying to work from home, desperate to hold on to my career. But as time passed and complications increased, I had no choice but to resign. "It's temporary. You'll be back soon," Bert tried to reassure me. I sighed, running my hands through my hair, noticing the gray strands I hadn't had time to color. Temporary. That word haunts me now. The twins are 3, and my once promising career feels like a distant memory. Watching Hadar knock down Tammy's block tower and a small fight break out, I moved to intervene. Catching my reflection in the window again, I noticed how my once sharp suits and heels had been replaced by yoga pants and a stained t-shirt. My confident smile had transformed into a tired, anxious expression. "Melia Errington, who are you now?" I whispered to myself, then turned to the children with a forced smile. "Come on, you two, let's build something together." As I sat on the floor, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost myself somewhere along the way. Little did I know that an unexpected journey of self-discovery was about to begin. While cleaning up the blocks, I dragged my exhausted body toward the kitchen. I needed to prepare dinner, but I couldn't think of what to make. Opening the refrigerator, I didn't even have the energy to look at its contents. "Mommy, I'm hungry." Hadar tugged at my pants from behind. "I know, sweetie, soon," I answered, though without conviction. The past 3 years with the twins had been like this every day. The reality was far more challenging than I'd ever imagined. The night crying was more intense than expected, and sleep deprivation had become chronic. During the day, I couldn't take my eyes off the children for even a moment. 5 minutes alone felt like a luxury. I, who once excelled at developing complex marketing strategies, now struggled to organize a daily schedule. Preparing bottles, changing diapers, feeding baby food, managing nap times. Fitting household chores between these tasks felt like forcing puzzle pieces together. "Your legacy will lead the way," I remembered that line from a TV drama. What legacy could I leave now? Piles of laundry. Toys scattered across the floor. My relationships with friends had gradually grown distant. They talked about work, travel, new restaurants. All I could discuss was the twins' development and parenting concerns. Our conversations no longer connected, and invitations became fewer. Neighborhood relationships weren't going well either. Conscious of the twins crying, I hesitated to go out, managing only perfunctory greetings with neighbors. Most painful was the growing divide with my husband. Bert remained absorbed in his work, coming home late and often going out on weekends. Even when he was home, he seemed unsure how to behave between his exhausted wife and energetic twins. I never dreamed love could be this complicated. Another TV drama line crossed my mind. Our relationship before marriage wasn't supposed to be like this. My regret about giving up my career grew daily. But I kept quiet, fearing accusations of, "Wasn't it for the children?" "Mommy, Tammy's crying." Hadar's voice brought me back to reality. With a deep sigh, I returned to the living room. Tammy was clutching her doll, big tears rolling down her cheeks. "What's wrong, Tammy?" "Dolly says her tummy hurts." I smiled and pulled my daughter close. "Well then, shall we play doctor?" As I said this, I thought to myself, this is my life now. But is this really okay? Will these days continue like this forever? Without finding an answer, I began playing with my daughter. It was the twins' 3rd birthday. While preparing for their party, I was overcome with an unusual exhaustion. Baking the cake, blowing up balloons, wrapping presents, all these tasks that should have been joyful felt like dragging a massive weight. "Happy birthday." The singing voices seemed to reach me from far away. Though I was there, I felt somehow detached. The children's smiles and friends' congratulations registered only dimly. Suddenly, I felt suffocated. My heart began racing, my limbs trembling. The room seemed to spin, and I collapsed to my knees. Melia, are you all right? I could hear Bert's voice, but I couldn't find the strength to respond. When I next opened my eyes, I was lying in a hospital bed. The doctor explained my condition. Mrs. Errington, you're suffering from depression, accompanied by panic attacks. Strangely, I felt relief hearing those words. All my suffering, the heaviness in my heart, it finally had a name. The doctor continued, I recommend inpatient treatment. It's a 6-week program combining medication with cognitive behavioral therapy. I hesitated. The children, the house, Bert. But would anything change if I went home now? Things might even get worse. Please, I answered in a small voice. The hospital stay was more challenging than I'd anticipated. I struggled with medication side effects, and therapy sessions forced me to confront what lay deep within: childhood memories, my attachment to my career, my perfectionist personality. Everything came to light, and I often found myself in tears as I re-examined myself. Following the daily routine, I gradually began to feel myself returning. Morning yoga, afternoon art classes, evening reading time. Through these activities, I learned to listen to my inner voice. After 6 weeks, my discharge date arrived. The face in the mirror, while not completely healed, definitely showed a healthier expression than before. Are you ready to go home? The nurse asked kindly. I took a deep breath and answered, yes, I'm ready to go home. At that moment, I had no way of knowing the unexpected reality that awaited me. Leaving the hospital, my heart was filled with mixed emotions of hope and anxiety. I got into a taxi and gave the driver my home address. The city scenery that hadn't met my eyes for 6 weeks came rushing in through the window. The children must have grown, I thought, imagining their faces. Had Bert been busy with work? How had the housework been managed while I was away? Worry and anticipation intermingled. When the taxi stopped in front of our house, I took a deep breath. A new beginning, I told myself as I approached the front door. I turned the key and opened the door. That's when the first sense of unease hit me. There were unfamiliar women's boots and a coat in the entryway. Perhaps we have a visitor, I thought as I headed toward the living room. What I saw there stopped me cold. A young woman I didn't know sat on the sofa, next to Bert. And on the floor, instead of my children, a child about 2 years old was playing. Melia, Bert stood up, surprised. You're already out. I couldn't speak. I was desperately trying to comprehend the situation before me. The young woman awkwardly stood up and said in a small voice, "Hello, I'm Amy." "Bert, what is this?" I finally found my voice. Bert heaved a deep sigh. "Melia, we need to talk. Why don't you sit down?" I sat on the sofa with trembling legs. Bert began his explanation. Amy was his subordinate, and they'd been having an affair for some time. They had a child together. And now, they were living here. While you were gone, we needed someone to take care of the kids. Bert's words of excuse reached my ears. My mind went blank. The confidence and hope I'd gained through treatment shattered in an instant. The twins? I managed to ask. They're taking a nap upstairs, Amy answered. Reality was slowly enveloping me. The home I was supposed to return to no longer existed. My place had already been taken. While I sat in silence, Bert began explaining the situation with cold detachment. My relationship with Amy began long before you went into the hospital. Bert continued in a voice devoid of emotion. Even when you were struggling with the twins, she was there to comfort me. Something inside me broke at those words. While I was suffering, you. My voice trembled, tears welling up. Melia, try to understand. She helped take care of the twins while you were hospitalized. Bert's words made anger surge within me. Helped? By bringing your mistress into our home. Near my children. I cried out. What about our marriage vows? Our family? Bert responded coldly, it's too late. Amy and I have a child now. We've decided to make a new family. And what about the twins? What about their father? I pleaded desperately. I'll see them sometimes. But for daily life. Bert's voice trailed off. How will you explain this to the children? What about their emotional well-being? Bert snapped, no longer hiding his irritation. Enough, Melia. I'll be clear. I can't handle the burden of you and the children anymore. Get out. Those words hit me like a physical blow. Feeling unable to breathe from the pain, I stumbled to my feet. Fine, I said quietly. I'll take the children and leave. I went upstairs and woke the sleeping twins. They looked at me in confusion. Mommy, what's wrong? Tammy asked. It's okay, we're just going on a little trip, I forced a smile. I quickly packed the bare essentials and took the children's hands. Coming down the stairs, Bert watched with cold eyes. You're really leaving? It's what you wanted, I answered. As I headed for the door, I felt completely lost. Where could we go? How would we survive? But I couldn't turn back. Goodbye, Bert. With those words, we left the house. I held the children's hands tightly. The future was uncertain. We began walking with no destination in mind. The twins looked tired, clutching my hands. Mommy, where are we going? Hadar asked anxiously. Don't worry, we'll find a nice place, I answered, lacking confidence. When we reached a nearby park, I sat down on a bench. I pulled Tammy and Hadar close on either side and let out a deep sigh. Tears rolled down my cheeks. I'm sorry, Mommy's so weak. Suddenly, a gentle voice spoke, Are you all right? Looking up, I saw a woman in her 60s gazing at us with concern. Yes, I'm fine, I hastily wiped away my tears. The woman smiled warmly. I'm Ebony Desley. Children, aren't you cold? Tammy and Hadar shook their heads. Ebony sat down beside us and spoke kindly. Would you mind telling me what's wrong? Normally, I wouldn't open up to a stranger. But something about this woman's warm gaze made me feel inexplicably safe. Well, I hesitated, then began telling her about the events of the past few hours. When I finished, Ebony looked surprised and said, "Could you be Melia Errington?" Now it was my turn to be surprised. "You know who I am." Ebony smiled gently. "Yes, my son Michael often spoke about you. He thought very highly of your talents." Michael. The name triggered my memory. He had been my boss and mentor. Whenever my son talked about you, he'd say, "She's going to achieve great things someday," Ebony continued. "And now, to find you in such circumstances." I looked down, overwhelmed by complex emotions. Comparing my former self with my current miserable state, I felt self-loathing creeping in. However, Ebony gently placed her hand on my shoulder. Life has unexpected turns. But sometimes those turns open new paths. I looked up at her words. Ebony's eyes were filled with compassion and hope. "Would you like to hear my proposal?" Ebony asked quietly. "What kind of proposal?" "I have a vacation home in the suburbs. Would you like to use it for a while?" Ebony smiled kindly. "It's a spacious house where your children can play freely." I stared at her in disbelief. "But, to offer such help to someone you barely know." "You're not a stranger," Ebony said softly. "I've heard so much about you from Michael, and more importantly, don't you and your children need help right now?" I hesitated. True, I had no options at the moment. But was it right to accept such kindness from others? Ebony continued, "There's also a job opportunity. I know someone who runs a consulting firm for small and medium-sized businesses. They could use someone with your skills." My heart raced at those words. A job opportunity. A chance to use my career skills again. But anxiety followed quickly. But I have this gap in my employment, and the children to consider. Ebony gently took my hand and said, "Nobody starts out perfect. What matters is having the courage to take that first step." I looked at the twins. Tammy and Hadar clung to me, exhausted. I had to do something for their sake. Taking a deep breath, I made my decision. "All right. I'll gratefully accept your offer." Ebony's face brightened. "Wonderful. Let's head to the house right away." As we got into the taxi, I felt strange. Just moments ago, I thought I'd lost everything, but now new possibilities were opening up. In the car heading to the suburbs, I began thinking. I needed to find a new daycare for the children. I had to prepare for work. While the uncertainties were endless, a small hope had begun to sprout. Adjusting to a new environment might be challenging, Ebony said. But I'm sure a wonderful new life awaits you. I managed a faint smile. Yes, it would probably be difficult. But perhaps this chance encounter would mark a new beginning for our family. Somehow, that thought made my heart feel lighter. Looking at the night view through the car window, I made a quiet vow. Whatever difficulties lay ahead, I would live life to the fullest, for my children's sake, and for my own. Through Ebony's introduction, I found employment at redditstories, a consulting firm for small and medium-sized businesses in Chicago's suburbs. The president, David Desley, understood my situation and offered flexible working arrangements. "Let's start with 3 days a week, part-time," David said, and I breathed a sigh of relief. The first few weeks involved basic tasks like organizing documents and conducting simple market research. However, as I grew accustomed to the work, the passion that had been dormant within me began to awaken. One day, during a meeting discussing campaign strategy for a major cosmetics brand, I gathered my courage to speak up. "I believe a more personalized approach would be effective for this target demographic." Drawing from my past experience, I proposed an interactive campaign utilizing social media. After a moment of silence in the meeting room, David broke into a broad smile. "That's brilliant, Melia. I want you to lead this project." From that day forward, my responsibilities rapidly increased. Direct client interactions, team management, developing new strategies. I could feel my former confidence gradually returning. When the proposed campaign proved successful, client evaluations were excellent. Word spread within the industry that redditstories' new marketing strategies are remarkable. My presence within the company grew stronger. Young employees began seeking my advice, and I was increasingly included in important decision-making. However, this success didn't come easily. Balancing work and childcare proved more challenging than I'd imagined. Mornings were hectic, rushing to drop the twins at daycare before dashing to the office. Nights often found me finishing presentation materials at the living room table after putting the children to bed. On the day of an important client meeting, Hadar suddenly developed a fever. "I'm sorry, I'll need to join remotely today," I apologized over the phone while struggling to care for my son with one hand. Still, I didn't give up. The children's smiles made all the exhaustion worthwhile. And the small successes at work gave me renewed confidence. One night, after putting the twins to bed, I gazed at the stars outside my window. The road ahead was still long, but I could feel we were definitely moving forward. "Melia Errington, you've still got it," I told myself. Another day of challenges awaited tomorrow. While I was beginning to feel fulfilled at work, changes were gradually occurring in my personal life too. The twins turned 4 and were slowly adapting to their new environment. One Saturday morning, while playing with the twins in the garden, a voice called out from next door. "Good morning. Beautiful day, isn't it?" It was Martha, our 70-ish neighbor, peering over the fence. With her warm smile, she'd been helping watch the twins lately. "Good morning, Martha," I smiled back. "Hey, there's a gardening club meeting this afternoon. Would you like to come?" Martha invited. Honestly, I hesitated at first. Between work and childcare, I barely had time for myself. But seeing the children's smiles, I made up my mind. "Thank you. I'd love to join." That afternoon, I touched soil and planted flowers for the first time in ages. The smell of earth, the colors of the flowers, the conversations with others, before I knew it, my heart felt lighter. Taking care of plants really settles the mind, doesn't it? Said the woman working beside me. It really does, I agreed wholeheartedly. Since then, gardening became my new hobby. I spent more time in the garden on weekends, and the twins began helping with plant care too. Simultaneously, my neighborhood connections expanded. The people I met through Martha gradually became my support network, helping watch the children during unexpected overtime or sharing useful information. I continued my psychological counseling. Through conversations with my therapist, I maintained time for self-reflection. "Melia, you're truly strong," my therapist said one day. "You've overcome such difficulties and built a new life." Those words brought tears to my eyes. True, it wasn't perfect yet. But I could feel I was moving forward, step by step. One day, finding the first rose blooming in my garden, I whispered to myself, like this rose, I want to grow slowly but surely. New environment, new relationships, and a new me. Everything was gradually taking shape. Though perhaps not spectacular, it gave me tangible hope. As my reputation at Desley Strategies grew, bigger challenges awaited. One morning, David came to my desk. "Melia, we've received a request for a new project from a major sports brand. I want you to lead it." I was speechless with surprise and joy. A global corporation. This opportunity could significantly advance my career. "Thank you. I'll give it my all." The project was challenging, developing a marketing strategy for the company's new fitness app. I immersed myself in research materials day and night, conducted market surveys, and crafted creative ideas. One evening, after putting the twins to bed, I was doing final checks on my presentation in the living room. Though exhausted, I felt my heart racing with excitement. On presentation day, I confidently delivered my proposal, an innovative campaign strategy combining social media and AI. After the presentation, silence filled the conference room. Then the company representative spoke. "This is an excellent proposal. We'd love to work with you." Tears welled up in my eyes at those words. I felt my years of experience and the strength gained from recent hardships had led to this moment. The project was a huge success. It was featured in industry magazines, and my name became widely known. "Melia, your work is truly outstanding," David said, visiting my office. "We're considering a substantial salary increase. And a promotion." His words filled me with deep gratitude and accomplishment. Financial worries decreased, and hope for the future expanded greatly. On my way home, I pulled over and took a deep breath. I remembered myself from a few months ago. The woman who had been in despair was now recognized as a marketing expert. New challenges, and a brighter future, surely awaited me. With career success came a new resolution in my heart. It was time to formally proceed with the divorce from Bert. One Saturday morning, after leaving the twins with neighborhood friends, I headed to an office building. It housed the divorce attorney's office Ebony had recommended. The lawyer welcomed me warmly. As I listened to her explanation, various emotions crossed my mind: anger, sadness, and surprisingly, even a sense of liberation. "What are your thoughts about custody?" the lawyer asked, and I answered immediately. "I want custody of the twins. But I want their father to have visitation rights." The lawyer nodded. "That's a wise decision. Now, let's discuss property division." We discussed the details: handling the house, joint account funds, and child support amounts. Though complex, the lawyer's calm advice helped tremendously. By the time I left the office, we had a concrete action plan. Next was communicating my intention to divorce to Bert and beginning negotiations. On my way home, I stopped at a park. Sitting on a bench, I took deep breaths. Now I had strength I couldn't have imagined 6 months ago: financial independence, career success, and most importantly, trust in myself. Thinking about the twins made my heart clench. I still had doubts about whether this was the best decision for them. But surely growing up with a happy mother was better than in an unhappy home. I called Ebony. "I've decided to proceed with the divorce." "You'll be fine, Melia," Ebony's voice gave me courage. When I got home, the twins ran to me happily. Hugging them, I made a quiet vow. Whatever difficulties lay ahead in life, I would live strongly, for these children, and for myself. One day, after finishing a meeting with a new client in Chicago's upscale shopping district, I was waiting to meet Bert. Walking confidently with an Hermes Birkin bag on my arm, a testament to my recent success. "Melia." I turned at his call to find Bert standing there. His expression showed surprise and confusion at seeing me after so long. "Why do you have such a bag?" Bert's voice revealed his disbelief. I smiled calmly. "It's been a while, Bert." Bert looked me up and down, seemingly at a loss for words. The stylish suited woman before him must have been quite different from the exhausted figure he'd last seen. "You've really changed," Bert finally managed to say. "Yes, a lot has happened," I replied matter-of-factly. Sitting at a nearby cafe, Bert began, "Melia, I'm truly sorry about that day. When I think about you and the children." "It's fine, Bert," I cut him off. "I didn't come to hear apologies." Bert looked confused. "Then why?" I opened my bag and took out a document. "I came to give you this." Bert took the papers and read them. His face gradually paled. "Divorce?" His voice trembled. "Yes," I answered calmly. "All the conditions are stated in the documents. I'll have custody of the twins. You'll have visitation rights. The child support amount is also specified." Bert stared at the documents, seemingly speechless. "Melia, couldn't we try again?" His voice was pleading. I took a deep breath and answered, "I'm sorry, Bert. We can't go back. I have a new life now. So do the children." Bert's shoulders slumped, his expression resigned. "I see, your mind is made up." "Yes," I said quietly but firmly. As I was leaving the cafe, Bert said one last thing: "You've become really strong. And beautiful." I answered without looking back as I walked away, "Thank you. But this is just the beginning." And Bert could only watch as I walked toward my new future. 3 months after my final meeting with Bert, I sat in my new apartment's living room. The Chicago skyline stretched out beyond the windows, and the twins' laughter filled the room. The divorce was final, and our new life had truly begun. "Mommy, look." Tammy proudly showed me her drawing. It showed 4 smiling figures. "This is us," Tammy explained. "Mommy, me, Hadar, and Grandma Ebony." I couldn't help but smile. Though Ebony wasn't their real grandmother, she had become an important part of their lives. "That's a beautiful drawing, Tammy," I hugged my daughter. Career-wise, I continued to succeed. My reputation at Desley Strategies spread throughout the industry, bringing in new clients consistently. Recently, I even received a direct offer from a major tech company. However, I politely declined it. "I value being able to work at my own pace here," I told David, who smiled happily at my response. Balancing childcare and work was still challenging, but I managed it much better than before. Daycare drop-offs and pickups, bedtime stories, weekend picnics in the park, everything had become part of our routine, creating a new rhythm for our family. My friendship with Ebony deepened further, and she became like a mother to me. Our Sunday morning breakfasts together became an essential joy. "Melia, seeing how you've grown makes me so proud," Ebony told me one day. "It's all thanks to you, Ebony," I answered with heartfelt gratitude. Having weathered life's storms, I now had real confidence. The reflection in the mirror showed a stronger, more serene expression than before. After putting the twins to bed, I stepped onto the balcony and looked up at the night sky. The stars were shining. I'll keep pursuing my dreams, for my children's sake, and for my own. The future might still be uncertain. But there's no need to fear it. Because I have the strength to overcome whatever comes my way. A new morning will come. And I'll face it with hope and confidence. This is my new life. And this is just the prologue. The greatest adventure is yet to come. My name is Gabriella White. Several years ago, I met Wally through a friend at university. At the time, I belonged to the university hiking club, and Wally was also a member. As we walked together through mountains and forests, our hearts opened up to each other alongside nature's beauty. One day, during a long hike, we came upon a beautiful lake. While spreading out our lunch by the lakeside, Wally suddenly turned to me and said, "Gabriella, the time I spend with you is so special. I want to be with you forever." I was filled with surprise and joy, and that moment marked the beginning of our relationship. Years later, we married and built a happy home together. Wally was a hard-working engineer, and I worked at the local library. We supported each other, loved each other, and shared life's small joys. However, I had recently begun to feel uneasy about Wally's behavior. He was spending less time at home and increasingly staying out late, citing work stress as the reason. Then our daughter, Ivy, was born. She was our long-awaited first child, and her birth brought new joy to our lives. After giving birth, I lay in my hospital bed holding Ivy, feeling both exhausted and relieved. Suddenly, Wally entered the hospital room. There was an unfamiliar stern expression on his face. When he saw Ivy, he suddenly began shouting, "That child isn't mine. I don't want her." I froze at his words. I stared at Wally in disbelief, unable to understand why he would say such cruel things. Wally had previously suspected me of having an affair, and those suspicions must have grown in his mind. However, Ivy was undoubtedly our daughter. His words deeply wounded my heart. At that moment, Nurse Veronica approached me. Her expression showed both tension and determination. "Gabriella, that child is special. You need to run away right now." Though confused by her words, I felt terrified by Wally's abnormal behavior, so I held Ivy close and left the room. As I walked down the hospital hallway, Wally's words kept echoing in my head, and my heart was pounding. I held Ivy tightly. Nurse Veronica, who had been chasing after me while I was still trying to understand what was happening, caught up. She was usually someone who comforted me with her kind smile, but now her face was filled with tension and urgency. "Gabriella." Her voice was desperate. "Veronica, why would Wally say such things?" I asked, my voice nearly breaking. Veronica grabbed my shoulders firmly and said with a serious expression, "Gabriella, listen. Your baby, Ivy, is special. I can't explain everything right now, but she's extremely important." "What do you mean by special?" I listened to Veronica's words, though confused. "There's no time. Seeing Wally's behavior, I'm certain. He's planning something terrible." Veronica's eyes were filled with fear. "Gabriella, you need to take Ivy and run away from here. Get in my car." I held Ivy tightly and followed Veronica's instructions. Her urgent voice and Wally's shouts were swirling in my head, and my heart was in turmoil. But protecting Ivy was now my top priority. Following Veronica, I hurried toward the hospital exit. Other patients and nurses in the hallway watched us with puzzled expressions. When Veronica pushed open the hospital door, cold wind enveloped us. We rushed to Veronica's car parked in the lot, and she quickly started the engine and drove off. From the back seat, holding Ivy, I looked at Veronica's back and said, "Thank you, Veronica." Veronica looked at me through the rearview mirror and smiled. "Don't mention it, Gabriella. I just want to protect you and Ivy." Veronica's car entered a quiet residential area. She carefully parked the car and turned to me, saying, "Let's settle down here for a moment. We need time to assess the situation before going back to your house." Holding Ivy tightly, I took a deep breath, trying to calm my nerves. "Thank you, Veronica. You're really helping me." Veronica smiled gently. "There might be important clues at your house. When you're ready, let's go back." For a while, I gazed at Ivy's tiny face. She was sleeping peacefully, and her presence gave me a small measure of comfort. We need to go back home to protect Ivy. When I said this, Veronica nodded and started the car again. A few minutes later, we arrived at my house. From the outside, everything seemed normal. I thanked Veronica and got out of the car, carrying Ivy into the house. The house was cool inside, with a heavy silence hanging in the air. I laid Ivy down on the living room sofa and looked around. While checking for anything unusual, Wally's words and Veronica's warning kept swirling in my mind. I headed to Wally's study. He spent a lot of time in this room, and there might be some clues here. Entering the study, I found several books and documents scattered on the desk. I carefully opened the drawers, checking each one. That's when I noticed a diary. I picked it up and began turning the pages. The first page read, Wally's diary. I held my breath as I read on. The diary contained entries about Wally suspecting me of having an affair and his conviction that Ivy wasn't his child. Furthermore, there were notes about Ivy being born with a rare condition, and Wally's plans to profit from using this data after realizing its research value. My hands were shaking, and anger and sadness welled up in my chest. Wally didn't acknowledge Ivy as his child and saw her merely as a means to make money. Just then, I heard the front door open. Wally had come home. I quickly closed the diary and returned to the living room, but Wally seemed to notice my actions. He stared at me coldly and asked, "Did you go into my room?" Since he had noticed, there was no point in hiding it. I decided to confront him with the truth right there to protect Ivy. "I read your diary, Wally," I answered firmly. "Why would you plan something like that? Ivy is our daughter." Wally sighed and sat down on the sofa. "Gabriella, you might not understand, but this is for the future." "For the future? You were planning to use Ivy, weren't you? How could you do something like that?" My voice rose. Wally answered calmly, "Ivy's condition is extremely rare. It has high research value and could bring enormous profits. This is business." His words filled me with anger. "Ivy isn't a business tool. She's our precious daughter. How can you think of something so cruel?" Wally stared at me expressionlessly. "By utilizing Ivy's condition, my life will completely change. She's a special existence. That doesn't make it right to use her. She's not your experimental subject." I shouted, holding back tears. "I'll fight you to protect Ivy, no matter what." Wally laughed coldly and stood up. "Whatever you do is useless. You can't stop this plan." I realized how cold and selfish Wally had become. He was no longer the Wally I once knew. I had to fight to protect Ivy. I shouted, "I'll do anything to protect Ivy. I will absolutely stop your plan." Wally returned to his cold expression and said in a calm voice, "Is that so? Then there's no helping it. Everything would be solved if you just handed over Ivy, but is that what you want?" "I will never hand Ivy over to you." I strongly refused. "She's my daughter and needs to be protected." A heavy tension hung in the living room air. Wally stared at me silently for a while, then let out a deep sigh. His expression showed a sharp determination, as if he had made up his mind about something. "Gabriella, you seem to need more explanation," he said quietly. I listened to his words with caution. Wally looked away from me and began speaking while staring out the window. "I don't believe Ivy is my child. You remember how I suspected you of having an affair in the past? I just couldn't shake that suspicion." I felt my chest tighten with surprise and sadness. "Wally, that was just suspicion. I never had an affair." "But I have no way to believe that," Wally continued. "When I learned that Ivy was born with a rare condition, those suspicions grew stronger. If she were my child, she wouldn't have such a condition. Surely her father isn't me. Is that why you decided to use Ivy?" I had lost the energy to deny his accusations. Wally nodded. "That's right. When I realized Ivy's condition had research value, I made plans to gain financial benefit from it. I thought this was the best way to secure my future." Unable to contain my anger, I raised my voice. "I don't want any future that comes from exploiting Ivy." Wally sneered and said, "Ivy is a tool with value. Her condition is extremely rare and will provide valuable data for researchers. By using her condition, I might be able to secure a wonderful future. You might not understand, but this is business." "I don't want to hear this," I shouted through tears. "This is absolutely unforgivable." I said nothing more. Then I picked up Ivy and turned toward the front door. "Where do you think you're going?" Wally asked coldly. "I'm taking Ivy somewhere safe," I answered without looking back. "To escape from you." Wally said nothing. I opened the front door while holding Ivy. The darkness of night enveloped us, heightening the tension of our escape. The moment I stepped outside, I remembered Veronica's words, "Gabriella, that child is special." Those words pushed me forward as I hurried to get into the car. As I started the engine and drove off, I thought about where to go to protect Ivy. I decided to head to Veronica's house first. Surely she would help us. As I drove, Wally's car appeared behind me. He was following us. My heart pounded, and my palms grew sweaty. I had to escape at all costs to protect Ivy. I increased my speed and drove along winding roads. Wally's car persistently followed. My heart was filled with fear and tension. I could see Veronica's house. I parked in front of it and quickly knocked on the door while holding Ivy. The door opened, and Veronica welcomed us with a surprised look. "Gabriella, what happened?" Veronica asked worriedly. "Wally is following us," I answered, breathless. "Please help us, Veronica." Veronica immediately understood the situation and invited us inside, firmly closing the door. "Don't worry, you're safe here," Veronica said gently, placing her hand on my shoulder. "I've called the police." Through tears, I expressed my gratitude to Veronica. "Thank you, Veronica. Thank you so much." "It's all right, Gabriella," Veronica said with a smile. Just then, We heard Wally shouting from outside. He was banging on the door, yelling, "Hand over Ivy." Though my heart was filled with fear, Veronica's words gave me courage. "Gabriella, love always wins. We'll fight to protect Ivy," Veronica said firmly. Inside Veronica's house was quiet, providing a stark contrast to the tense situation outside. While Ivy slept peacefully in my arms, my heart was full of anxiety and tension. "Gabriella, first, let's stay calm. We need to think calmly about protecting Ivy," Veronica said in a gentle voice. "Thank you, Veronica. But Wally isn't someone who gives up easily. He'll do anything to get Ivy," I answered with a trembling voice. Veronica nodded. "Let's wait here until the police arrive. As long as we're together here, Ivy is safe." Those words brought me a little relief, but knowing how persistent Wally could be, I couldn't completely relax. Veronica prepared drinks for us and encouraged me to stay calm. "Can you tell me more about Wally's plans?" Veronica asked. I nodded and began explaining in detail what I had found in Wally's diary. I told her about his plans to profit from Ivy's condition and his intention to provide her as research material to scientists. Veronica listened with a serious expression. "That's truly horrifying," Veronica sighed. "But once the police arrive, we can expose Wally's plans." Just then, we heard sirens outside. The police had arrived. Veronica opened the front door and began explaining the situation to the officers. I waited in the living room, holding Ivy. A few minutes later, one of the police officers entered the living room and gently addressed me. "Mrs. White. We're here to protect you. Could you tell us more about your husband's plans?" I told the officer about Wally's diary and its contents, sharing everything necessary to protect Ivy. The officers listened seriously and began taking the necessary steps. "Understood. Don't worry. We'll do everything we can to stop his plans," the officer said reassuringly. Veronica sat next to me, placing her hand on my shoulder to encourage me. "Gabriella, it's going to be all right now. The police are handling it, just hang in there a little longer." Veronica prepared warm blankets for us and spoke kindly to comfort me. "Gabriella, you're a strong mother. You're doing everything you can to protect Ivy. Your courage is unmatched," Veronica said with a smile. Her words brought tears to my eyes. Holding Ivy, I felt grateful for Veronica's support. My determination to protect Ivy at all costs grew even stronger. Several hours after the police arrived at Veronica's house, my heart wavered between anxiety and hope. Veronica continued to support us. As the clock in the living room seemed to move slowly, I held Ivy tightly. Suddenly, we heard an urgent voice from the police radio. "Target secured. Repeat, target secured." I breathed a sigh of relief at those words. Wally had been arrested. One of the police officers entered the living room and smiled at me. "Mrs. White, we've arrested your husband. You and Ivy are safe now." I exhaled with relief at those words. Veronica sat next to me, placing her hand on my shoulder to encourage me. "That's wonderful, Gabriella. You can relax now." The police officers explained the details of Wally's arrest and told me how he would be handled going forward. "Your husband will be charged with attempting to profit from your daughter's condition. The domestic threats will also be taken very seriously." Holding Ivy tightly, I felt relieved that Wally would face legal consequences. "Thank you so much for protecting Ivy." The officer nodded and replied, "It's our job. Your safety is what matters most." Veronica squeezed my hand and said, "Gabriella, now you can really make a fresh start. Let's live strongly for Ivy." Just then, the front door opened, and Wally was brought in handcuffed. His face showed no remorse, only cold eyes staring at us. As the police officer pushed him into the patrol car, Wally spoke his final words. "Gabriella, this isn't over. I won't give up. Remember that." Though I felt a moment of fear at his words, Veronica's words quickly came to mind. "Gabriella, you're a strong mother. You're doing everything you can to protect Ivy. Your courage is unmatched." As I listened to the patrol car drive away, I renewed my determination to protect Ivy. I was determined to give everything I had to start a new life with Ivy, without yielding to Wally's threats. Veronica smiled beside me and said, "Now you can really relax. You and Ivy are safe." In the quiet living room of Veronica's house, I held new hope with Ivy. With Wally's arrest, our future became bright again. Grateful for Veronica's support and the police's quick response, I held on to my determination to live strongly for Ivy's sake. Several weeks after Wally's arrest, our lives were gradually regaining stability. Veronica continued to support us devotedly. We moved to a safe location and decided to prioritize Ivy's health and happiness in our new life. Our new house was in a quiet suburb with a spacious yard where Ivy could play freely. Veronica visited us frequently and supported our life. Her presence was more comforting than words could express. One day, I was playing with Ivy in the garden. Every time I saw her smile, I felt that all our hardships had been worthwhile. Though Ivy was still small, her eyes sparkled with hope for the future. "Ivy, look. The flowers are blooming," I said to her with a smile. Ivy clapped her tiny hands in delight. Her innocent smile warmed my heart. In the evening, Veronica came to visit. She brought dinner for us, and we gathered around the table together. Her presence brought comfort to our lives, and our bond grew stronger with each passing day. "Gabriella, I'm so proud of how strong you've been for Ivy," Veronica said with a smile. "Thank you, Veronica. But I couldn't have made it this far without your support." "It's all thanks to you," I replied gratefully. After dinner, I took Ivy to bed to tuck her in. She fell asleep quickly, and as I watched her peaceful sleeping face, I felt hope for the future. While having tea with Veronica in the living room, we discussed our plans going forward. We vowed to work together to build a stable life and bright future for Ivy. We should gather more information about Ivy's condition and think about how to manage it, Veronica said with a serious expression. "Yes, we'll do everything we can," making Ivy's health our top priority, I answered with renewed determination. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the difficult days we'd been through, but at the same time, my heart was filled with new hope. I felt grateful that we had been freed from Wally's threats and could start a new life with Ivy. Our lives continued to move forward, little by little. As Ivy grew, the bond between Veronica and me grew stronger, and our friendship deepened. Research into Ivy's condition progressed, and measures were put in place to protect her health. I vowed to live strongly for Ivy's sake. Love always wins. I believed that light would surely shine on the future we would walk together with Ivy. You know, actually, Daddy. My young daughter's confession left me stunned. That man, doing such things behind my back. Unforgivable. In that moment, I decided I would do whatever it took to send my husband to hell and make him regret everything with all my might. My name is Dahlia. I'm 42 and terribly weak against heat. Every year around August, my appetite drops dramatically and I become completely exhausted. I'm not sure if it's my poor lifestyle or if recent summer heat is just abnormal. This year, I might stock up on ice cream just to get some sugar in my system. While I try various measures against summer heat every year, winter also holds bitter memories for me. It happened several years ago. I was living happily with my husband and our daughter Kiara. All right. Kiara, let's go out with Daddy. Okay. My husband said this while taking our daughter's hand, preparing to leave. Somehow, my daughter didn't seem very enthusiastic. That sounds nice. Where are you going? Take me too. I said playfully to my husband. Huh? You don't need to come, he replied. What? You've got housework to do, right? Just take care of things at home. What's that about? You said the same thing last time and wouldn't take me. Haven't you been cold to me lately? Though I could tell from his serious expression that he wasn't joking, I tried to play it off lightly. However, my husband spat out words that surely didn't match his true feelings. No, this is consideration for my busy wife, and headed to the parking lot with our daughter. If it were really consideration, he would say something like, since housework is tough, let's go out for a break, or I'll help with the housework. Recently, my husband had been increasingly taking our daughter out somewhere alone. If I said, I want to go too, like earlier, he would refuse, and when I asked the pair where they went after they returned, they would stubbornly answer, it's a secret, and tell me nothing. I wondered if maybe my family had come to dislike me. If my daughter disliked me, it might be because I was always strict and angry about her food preferences. As for my husband, perhaps it was because I rarely went out except for neighborhood shopping since I was a housewife, and lately I hardly even wore makeup. Thinking about various things, I started to feel I might have some shortcomings too. So after finishing the housework, I decided to make myself look nice. I put on makeup and prepared lots of our daughter's favorite foods for dinner while waiting for them to return home. Welcome home, dear Kiara. I greeted them with a smile when they returned. However, My husband only said, "Oh, I'm home," without even meeting my eyes. As for our daughter, she looked tired, perhaps from playing too much. "Kiera, did you have fun going out?" "Yes." "Wasn't it fun?" "That's not true, right, Kiera?" For some reason, my husband cut into the conversation while I was asking our daughter. Prompted by my husband, our daughter answered, "It was fun, but somehow it felt half-hearted." Usually when Kiera truly had fun, she would tell me about the day's events with her impressions mixed in. My husband seemed flustered by our daughter's unenthusiastic response. Was it because she didn't enjoy where he took her? Or were the two of them hiding something? Since neither my husband nor daughter would say anything, I had no proof. Maybe they really just went out to play. But since I wasn't allowed to go along, a strange uneasiness remained in my mind. By the way, the only one who mentioned my change in makeup and clothes that day was our daughter, who later regained her energy. "Mama, you look pretty today," she said. My husband glanced over at this but only said, "Huh, you're right," and that was it. I wanted to get angry and say, "You could say a bit more than that," but perhaps my efforts had missed the mark if they weren't even concerned about my appearance. And here I thought they had just come to dislike me. Though they were my own family, I didn't know what to do about them. After that too, my husband continued taking just our daughter out somewhere every weekend. As always, no matter what I said, he wouldn't take me along. The time they returned home gradually got later and later, from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m., until finally they came back after 10 p.m. A new record late return. My husband was carrying our sleeping daughter on his back. Since his behavior had become clearly excessive, I ended up scolding my husband right after he got home. "Hey! Where are you taking Kiera until this late? She has kindergarten tomorrow, she needs to go to bed early instead of being dragged around until midnight." My husband grimaced at my words as if to say, "Shut up." As if he couldn't hear my voice, he ignored me while taking off his shoes and went straight up to the room. "Hey, are you listening? If you love Kiera enough to take her out to play every week, you should think about her health too. Shut up." Suddenly my husband raised his voice as if a dam had broken. Our daughter, who had been sound asleep, seemed to wake up at his voice and started crying. "Come here, Kiera, don't cry," I said as I detached her from my husband's back and held her. "Geez, don't raise your voice when there's a child here," I scolded my husband. He shot back, "What about you? Getting all worked up as soon as I get home? Are you in a bad mood because you can't come along on our outings?" "That's not it at all. I'm just saying if you're going to take a child out, please consider the time." "Oh sure, you're just jealous of our daughter who gets to go out." "Why would you interpret it that way? Isn't it normal for a parent to not want their child dragged around late at night?" "Whatever, just prepare my bath. Bring me my change of clothes." "What's with that attitude?" "Fine, I don't care. Get your own clothes." "Huh? You always bring them for me. It's your own fault since your attitude made me angry." "I won't do anything." Damn. I really failed in choosing a wife. My husband left while giving me a cold stare that seemed impossible for looking at one's wife. He deliberately closed the door loudly and walked to the bathroom with thundering footsteps. I couldn't help feeling scared. What's going on? I don't think I said anything wrong. Rather, my husband lacks awareness as a father towards our daughter. He used to be more family-oriented and wasn't the type to get angry in a way that frightened those around him. Why did he become like this? Almost 6 years since our marriage. Perhaps it's time to reconsider our relationship. After this incident, my husband's rough treatment of me became more noticeable. I need this, huh? One Sunday. What my husband handed me was a memo. It had things like ice cream and potato chips written in his handwriting. What's this? Are you telling me to go buy these? You're free anyway, please. No way, you're just sitting at home doing nothing too. Go buy them yourself. Huh? A housewife shouldn't talk back to her husband. Who do you think's money lets you live so comfortably? And who do you think lets you live without doing any housework? You earn money, I do housework at home, it's just a division of roles, right? Our positions should be equal. You're not cute at all. Kiara, tell Mama, say, old hag. Old hag. Our daughter repeated the words my husband told her with a puzzled look. However, my husband was delighted that our daughter had called me an old hag and encouraged her, say it more, while laughing loudly. Why should I be called an old hag just for speaking sense? Perhaps noticing my irritation, our daughter looked at me with an apologetic expression, so I quickly forced a smile and smiled just at her. Anyway, go shopping yourself. To my words, my husband cursed, what a stingy wife. I wanted to complain that even our kindergarten daughter does things for herself, but I stayed quiet since it would just lead to a big fight. Lately, fights with my husband have been increasing like this constantly. Thinking it would badly influence our daughter too, I tried to live while suppressing my feelings to avoid conflicts with my husband as much as possible. I wondered if there was some way to rebuild a good relationship with my husband again. At this rate, the word divorce might start floating in my mind. Our daughter is attached to my husband too, so I wanted to avoid that choice if possible. I agonized over whether there was anything I could do as a parent and wife. However, my husband probably didn't consider my feelings at all. Though he reduced taking our daughter out, his nighttime wandering increased. He would often go out saying he was taking a walk after dinner but not return for hours, or leave the house empty on holidays. Perhaps he dislikes being together since our fights have increased. Though I want to get along, my efforts keep missing the mark. Our daughter's expression seems to have darkened somewhat too. At a loss for what to do, I suggested to my husband, let's go out as a family. Kiara's birthday is coming up too, so let's go to the aquarium and eat out on the way back. To celebrate her birthday. Right? Our daughter was overjoyed at my suggestion, saying, I want to see the dolphins. Though an air of reluctance emanated from my husband, perhaps judging he couldn't refuse given our daughter's reaction, he agreed saying, all right. I thought if we could spend time together as a family, surely this tense atmosphere would change. I thought conversation would increase too if we enjoyed ourselves outside rather than inside the house, but what? Work came up. Sorry, but I have to go to the office. See you. Wait. Hey. On our daughter's birthday. My husband left in a hurry saying, I got called into work from the company, without properly apologizing. Mama, what about the aquarium? Our daughter had tears in her eyes. Confused by the sudden situation myself, I could only vaguely say, I'm sorry, to comfort her, unable to say whether we would or wouldn't go. In the end that day, our daughter and I went to the aquarium together, but canceled just the dinner out since my husband might come home. However, my husband didn't even send a single message though it got late into the night, and unbelievably came home in the morning. What do you mean canceling family plans and not even contacting us before coming home in the morning? Having waited up for my husband without sleeping, I ended up yelling as soon as he got home. However, without showing even an apologetic face, my husband brazenly said, can't be helped since it was work. I'm not angry about the cancellation due to work. I'm angry that you don't have even a bit of apologetic feeling. Even yesterday, I took Kiara just to the aquarium since she was looking forward to it so much, but she kept making sad faces because you weren't there. Even for dinner, since that child said she wanted to eat with Papa, we canceled the restaurant and waited at home for you two together. After canceling plans in that way, don't you think family might be waiting at home? Even now, you haven't said even one sorry. My complaints about my husband came pouring out one after another like a broken dam. Though I had some feeling I shouldn't say these things, I couldn't stop anymore. You waited on your own, right? If you're going to complain so much, you should have just gone to sleep instead of purposely staying up. Don't try to cover up your own bad mood by blaming it on our daughter. You're just throwing a tantrum on your own. How did it become that kind of conversation? Don't you feel anything about skipping out on your daughter's birthday? Like I said, how many times do I have to tell you? It was work. Are you telling me to quit my job? I'm not saying anything like that. Fine. I'm tired, I'm going to shower and sleep. Saying that, my husband turned away and went to the bathroom like during that fight before. Though I had kept telling myself it couldn't be true until now, maybe continuing as a married couple really was impossible. Even if we avoided divorce and continued as a show marriage for our daughter's sake, if our daughter noticed something wrong with our relationship in the future, we would end up hurting her anyway. If we continue this tense relationship, it's only a matter of time before she notices. Children aren't that stupid. But right now our daughter loves both my husband and me. If told she could only choose one parent in case of divorce, wouldn't that be painful? Unable to decide whether to divorce or not, my heart wavered. Then one day it happened. Kiara, sorry we couldn't go to the aquarium on your birthday. Want to take a bath with Papa today? Yes. Our daughter happily agreed to my husband's invitation. It seems my husband felt somewhat bad about the other day in his own way. Though he doesn't need to apologize to me, I felt slightly relieved hearing the words sorry, since I wanted him to at least feel apologetic towards our daughter. Mama. Papa said he'll play with me. That's great, Kiara. Our daughter skipped happily towards the bathroom carrying her bath toys. While finding it endearing and thinking how cute she was, I said to my husband too, have fun. My husband just answered, yes. Though he remained curt with me as always, that was fine for now. Just seeing our daughter happy was enough. Or so I thought. It was about 20 minutes after they went to the bathroom. Dahlia. Help. I heard my husband's trailing voice call out loudly, and thinking something might have happened to our daughter, I hurried to the bathroom where my husband had collapsed half out into the changing room in a crawling position. Dear. What happened? Though he didn't respond when called, so seemed unconscious, he was breathing. Since his legs and arms were red, maybe he got overheated. Looking around, I noticed our daughter was missing. Her clothes weren't in the changing room. What was going on? Though they should have been showering together. Though I felt bad for my husband, I prioritized our missing daughter and frantically searched the whole house. Then when I went outside and around to the back of the bathroom, I heard a small voice saying, "Mama, Mama," from the direction of the storage shed. It was Kiara's voice. I immediately opened the storage shed door. There was our daughter, sitting alone among cleaning supplies and trash meant to be thrown away. Why in such a place? Hide and seek? No, that couldn't be. Our house has a back door next to the bathroom. It's because we used to have a large dog. We designed it that way since it was convenient for washing their feet after walks. Therefore, it was fully possible for our daughter alone to come to this storage shed from the bathroom. However, there's no way a child who was so looking forward to playing in the shower with her father would suddenly hide in the storage shed. Why are you in a place like this? Did your father tell you to? I immediately hugged her. Poor thing. Her small body was completely cold from being in the freezing storage shed. Yes. Papa said, wait here. He said don't come out until I call you. Why would he do such a thing? You know, I kept it secret, but what our daughter told me then was an utterly horrifying story. I'm ashamed I lived without knowing anything. And more than that, I felt hatred for my husband. I'll never forgive him, I'll make him regret this from the bottom of his heart. This is how I decided to take everything away from my husband. It's cold. What's this? Hey, is that you, Dahlia? My husband's voice conveyed his clear confusion. Yes. You're awake. What do you mean, you're awake? You left me naked in the bathroom, what a cold wife. Saying that, my husband opened the door and came back to the changing room. Right after, my husband's face stiffened. Huh? Dad? Mom? Waiting with me sitting formally in the changing room were my husband's parents. The two glared at him sternly. Why are they in a place like this? I'm not wearing clothes, so don't look. Hey, towel. My husband frantically grabbed a bath towel and covered his front. Oh my. Don't you have more important things to hide than that? Huh? What are you trying to say? My husband responded unpleasantly to my question. He can maintain such an attitude only for now. You should have hidden this person, right? Saying that, I dragged the woman who had been waiting in the hallway into the changing room. No! Stop, the woman screamed. My husband's expression froze again when he saw her. Why? It seems you were dating this person in our bathroom. After sending our daughter to the storage shed. How do you know that? My husband quickly covered his mouth and made an expression like he'd messed up. I couldn't help smirking, pleased that my husband had given himself away. I heard everything from our daughter and this woman. No matter how much you try to hide it, it's useless, face it. At my words, my husband held his head in his hands. He seemed to realize he could no longer keep up the pretense. What I heard from our daughter was an unbelievable story. My husband had been having an affair with this woman, Ronnie, all this time. And more than that, he took our daughter along. The place he said he was taking her to play was actually Ronnie's house. No wonder I wasn't allowed to come along. On top of that, he had manipulated our daughter by saying, "Don't tell Mama where we went or who we met. Because Kiara will get scolded." Because of this, our daughter couldn't honestly say she didn't want to go to the mistress's house, and had no choice but to stay quiet. Using Kiara for affair alibi cover-ups is the lowest. You've disappointed me as a human being. You disgrace. Saying this, my husband's mother violently slapped his cheek. Furthermore, she was beating my husband's body with a laundry detergent bottle, but no one tried to stop her. Only Ronnie somewhat hesitantly intervened, saying, "That's enough." Everyone else watched my husband with the feeling that he deserves to be hit. "Why did you call my parents for my affair, Dahlia? That's underhanded. I don't want to hear about being underhanded from someone who did such an underhanded thing as having an affair. I just wanted your parents who love Kiara to know about your outrageous behavior. What's wrong with that?" "That's right. Don't you dare complain," my father-in-law shouted, agreeing with my words. My in-laws, who dote on Kiara as their first grandchild, might hate my husband even more than I do. My father-in-law's fierce gaze, which was apparently quite bad in his younger days, made my husband visibly tremble. "Anyway, Ronnie, how did you get caught?" "I made sure you escaped." That's. Ronnie had come to our house at my husband's invitation. Why did my husband do such a foolish thing as inviting his mistress home? The reason goes back to our daughter's birthday. That day, it seems my husband had originally planned to meet Ronnie. He was planning to take our daughter along as usual. However, when I suggested the birthday party, his plans changed. When my husband said, "I want to cancel this time," Ronnie apparently got angry, saying, "Which is more important, me or your family?" From there, their relationship became somewhat strained and awkward. Recently, my husband apologized and told her, "I'll cherish you." And as proof that Ronnie was more important than family, he invited her to our house. He even said lines like, "If my wife finds out about you, I'll choose you this time for sure." Though he says he invited her home, it was really just a brief tryst of several dozen minutes in the bathroom. Moreover, He brought our daughter who loves playing in the bath to avoid suspicion even for longer periods. Though I think this shows my husband's cowardly side, Ronnie seems to have been happy about it anyway. They say love is blind. This is how the two came to meet secretly in our house. However, my husband got too excited by the unusual situation of meeting his mistress in our home bathroom, his blood pressure rose, and he lost consciousness from overheating. Just before losing consciousness, he somehow managed to get Ronnie to escape through the back door. In her panic, Ronnie forgot to take her clothes and had just a towel. Though she wanted my husband to get her belongings, the back door was locked and he had already passed out. With nowhere to run, she hid behind our storage shed and was easily found by me. "This wasn't supposed to happen, I'm sorry," said a teary-eyed Ronnie. My husband sighed as if annoyed and groaned, "This is the worst." What an outrageous thing to say even at this point. I couldn't help scolding him. "Isn't that attitude wrong towards your crying lover, even if she is a mistress? Whose side are you on? The only certain thing is that I'm your enemy." At my husband's clicking tongue, my in-laws' eyebrows rose unpleasantly. Noticing their reaction, my husband looked away awkwardly and declared, "That woman is just making things up. I haven't had any affair." Huh? Ronnie looked at my husband with a surprised expression. Here came an unexpected betrayal. That's right. She broke into the back door on her own and kidnapped Kiera. Everyone thought this excuse was obviously impossible. However, my husband seemed to want to get through this situation somehow with this pathetic excuse. "She's an intruder," he accused Ronnie. "Unbelievable. Didn't you call me here? I even have your messages on my phone." My husband flinched at Ronnie's words. "That's right. I confiscated Ronnie's phone, so I've seen all your exchanges." When I said this, Ronnie took on a triumphant attitude, saying, "See? You won't escape alone. When we go to hell, you're coming with me." Saying this, Ronnie hit my husband. Though my husband said, "What are you doing?" he seemed unable to argue against Ronnie's words and bit his lip in silence. "I'm sorry. I apologize for having such a relationship with your husband. So please forgive just me." It seems Ronnie finally decided to betray my husband. She obviously tried to curry favor with me. Behind Ronnie, my husband was saying childish things like, "That's unfair of you. Don't worry, Ronnie. Neither one of you will escape alone. When I send you to hell, it will be together, huh? They should be coming soon." "What are you talking about?" "Oh, nothing. I don't understand." Shortly after such exchanges, our house's intercom rang. "Father-in-law, could you please greet the person who just came and bring them here?" Though looking puzzled, my father-in-law said, "All right," and headed to the entrance. Then, one person came to the changing room guided by my father-in-law. Ronnie's face stiffened. No wonder. She must have been quite surprised. I could feel my mouth involuntarily forming a smirk. This is Ronnie's father. I found his contact information in Ronnie's phone and explained the situation by email to invite him here. "No!" my husband shouted. "Huh? I asked back. Why are you here? Director. My husband was surprised and Ronnie turned pale. Huh? Director. What do you mean? Dahlia, why did you call my boss? Calling our parents is one thing, but you got the wrong person. Making things complicated. No, I checked the sent history on Ronnie's phone in my hand, thinking it couldn't be. I definitely sent the message to someone registered as Papa. I didn't make any mistake. So this person should be Ronnie's father, but... Meanwhile, the man called Director also stood frozen with a pale face. It can't be, Ronnie, the director groaned. Ronnie broke down crying and screamed, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. My husband also stood there dumbfounded. Aren't I your lover? What do you mean, father? That's, well. Ronnie looked around troubled while the director desperately tried to get to the truth. Since it was registered as Papa, I thought he was your parent when I called him. Is that wrong? The director's eyes widened at my question. Papa? At the director's words, Ronnie hung her head. Unable to see her face. You saw me as Papa rather than a lover. I was just a wallet. That's not true. I really loved you. Then why did you register me as Papa? I thought it was strange, you always asked for things when we met, but wouldn't move forward with marriage. Listen. That's not it. I don't care anymore. I guess I was the only one who thought we were seriously dating. At first I couldn't understand what was going on at all, but apparently Ronnie and my husband started having an affair after working at the same company. Meanwhile, Ronnie was simultaneously dating the director. Dating might sound nice, but essentially she was receiving financial support from him. The director thought it was a serious relationship and was even considering marriage, but Ronnie wasn't enthusiastic and always avoided the topic. Yet she would ask for things like engagement rings, and thinking back there were many strange points. Since she didn't have that kind of relationship with my husband, Ronnie's true target was probably my husband. The director was just a papa. I had assumed he was a single father since there was no mama registered, but that's what it meant. Did you two have fun making a fool of me? Director, I didn't know Ronnie was dating you. That doesn't matter. Making me lose face like this. You two better be prepared. Brushing off my husband who tried to stop him, the director left our house. Ronnie and my husband both collapsed to their knees saying, "It's over." Oh my. Looks like you'll lose your job and everything else. Dear. Whose fault, huh? What do you mean everything else? You'll lose your family too, from now on. Huh? I quietly handed my husband the divorce papers that I had my mother-in-law bring. Sign this please. Let's get divorced. I'll take custody of Kiera. How can you decide that on your own, how? I can't believe you can say that. Do you not understand what you did to our daughter? You did something that could potentially traumatize her for life. There's no way I'd continue living with such a man. Are you an idiot? You should forgive one affair as a man's privilege. just as I was about to snap at my husband's words. My husband fell backwards forcefully. My father-in-law had kicked him. "You're not even wearing clothes, but it seems your head still hasn't cooled down." My father-in-law's face was red with anger. For some reason his mouth was smiling, but the aura radiating from his back contained killing intent. "Dad. I don't want excuses." Saying this, my father-in-law grabbed my husband's hair and slapped him. Though it would seem excessive normally, it was probably forgivable this time. No one showed any sign of sympathizing with my husband. Probably because they thought my husband was too much of a scumbag. Thus my husband consented to divorce through my father-in-law's forceful methods. He promised to pay compensation and child support, and handed over all property to me without any division. I feel a bit sorry that we took everything from my husband just with my father-in-law's fists without any trial or anything. Well, considering what my husband did to our daughter, it's probably appropriate. He should regret these actions from the bottom of his heart after losing everything. Afterwards, Ronnie paid compensation to me and had to pay compensation to the director as well. Though it's usually difficult to get compensation for romance scams, in Ronnie's case she was apparently careless as various pieces of evidence for fraud came out. When we investigated a bit, everything was exposed when we found detailed how to successfully commit dating fraud written on her social media account. She was fired from the company for that scandal. Of course, my husband's misdeeds were also brought to light, and both of them ended up having to leave the company. My husband's work was somewhat specialized, with strong horizontal connections in that world. Events that occur at one company often spread as rumors to other companies. This scandal involving my husband was no exception and spread outside the company, making his job hunting difficult. Though he finally managed to switch to a different industry, it seems the work didn't suit him and didn't last long, leading to 4 consecutive job changes. His resume came to look like someone who can't keep a job, and finally he couldn't pass any interviews. However, where there's a will, there's a way. One place was found that would hire even my job-hopping husband. It was a food processing factory. It should have been thankful for my husband. However, that company was famous in the industry as a black company where many people quit due to health problems. Meanwhile, I turned our house into a rental property and started living with our daughter in an apartment near the station. Even though we were divorced, it's not good mentally to live in a house where such things happened. Actually, when we divorced, I did ask our daughter, "Is it okay if we say goodbye to Papa?" Though I had decided on divorce on my own initiative, I was worried that our daughter might still want to have a father. However, our daughter's response was, "Yay." Due to my husband's repeated betrayals, being taken to his mistress's house only to be ignored, breaking promises, our daughter's heart had already left her father long ago. She even made the mature comment, "It was troublesome having to go along with Papa's playing," which made me laugh despite myself. Needless to say, I was able to divorce without reservations because of this. Right after the divorce, my husband seemed uninterested in our daughter and didn't even say he wanted to see her, so there were no requests for visitation. However, as he aged, perhaps he became lonely being single. Around when our daughter entered elementary school, he increasingly said, "I want to meet as a family." However, our daughter just laughs it off saying, "No, we're not family," and doesn't want to go. It's not that I'm preventing them from meeting, but our daughter herself keeps canceling meetings with my husband through various methods. The other day too, she canceled on the day of saying, "My stomach hurts." This was also a lie. Though my husband seems to realize these are lies and drops his shoulders saying, "I deserve this," he still seeks meetings, probably because he holds hope. Though that hope too will likely be crushed by our daughter soon. Our daughter herself is saying, "I never plan to meet him." It seems the road ahead will be difficult for my husband. Meanwhile, our daughter and I have built a relationship that's like parent-child but also like friends. On holidays we go clothes shopping together, with our daughter choosing clothes for me and me enjoying choosing clothes and hair accessories for her. This kind of fun is unique to having a same-sex parent, right? Recently, our daughter apparently has a boy she likes, so she wants to master making delicious sweets. I'm teaching her how to make especially delicious sweets. By the way, after the divorce, I opened a pastry shop using my previous experience as a pastier. Though I struggle with things like a famous chain store known for low prices opening nearby and rising costs. Every time I see families come and buy my cakes to celebrate special days, I feel, I'm glad I did this. Some customers even tell me they prefer my shop's taste to famous stores. I'll continue making sweets that will remain in people's memories from now on too. Our daughter even says, "Someday I'll take over Mom's shop." Though I'm not expecting it, I'd be happy if such a day really came.